thought the best way to keep doors open and to find what I really wanted to do is to do engineering, because I loved science, I loved mathematics and physics. So I'm like, okay, let's continue on this path and see. My sister is now an entrepreneur as well, and she was not at all in this path before.
Okay.
And then my brother is an engineer, not a mechanical engineer. I think somehow there are some learnings and then some maybe inspirations. I think my choice of coming back home is first to contribute to my country, because I felt lucky to have access to education, to travel the world, to see what was happening. And I thought, if we don't do it, who will do it?
Welcome to Seedstars podcast. Seedstars is an organization that aims to have an impact in emerging markets by supporting the local entrepreneurs, investing in their ventures, but also sharing their story globally, because we really believe they are the true heroes. We'll be listening to them and other thought leaders and disruptors that are really shaping the future of tomorrow. And we hope that together we can build a sustainable impact.
Hello, welcome to the Seedstars podcast. My name is Romulo and I have the pleasure to be here with Kenza from Outliers Ventures. Hello, Kenza.
Hi, Romulo.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
Cool. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm curious to start, why the name of your VC fund of Outliers Ventures? Where did that name come from?
Well, Outliers means something that is outside of the box. So we are actually looking for those people who can build companies that are outside of the box and can really scale very fast in Africa. So we're looking for the outliers.
Okay,
actually,
great.
How it came, it's because it's a book that I've read that's called Outliers, The Story of Success. It's a very well-known book. So this is how the inspiration came from.
Okay, that's nice to hear. Was it your first option always, or you had other names in mind as well?
You know, you never know until it comes. When it comes, then you get the inspiration and you know that that's the right name. So I can tell.
Great. And so I read about you, and you have an impressive academic background, studying some executive programs in like Ivy League universities in the US. Do you think your academic background contributed to the success of your professional career?
Well, actually, I think I studied engineering in France first in a school called INSA. And then I did a master in business in Singapore with a French school called ESSEC that had a campus in Singapore. And then after that, so before I worked in tech, and then I worked in consulting and private equity. And I felt really inspired to go explore other places in the world, because I could see how Southeast Asia was incredibly growing fast, and how I've always been very curious to understand what made them so successful in 50 years. And then after that, I started, I thought, wow, I think there is so much things to see and learn in the world. And I wanted to see the other side of the world, so the US. So I kept applying everywhere in the world, and I got lucky. I got the job in San Francisco. To be honest, it was like a dream. I thought, I said, if I could go there for like 6 months or a year, I will be so happy. I would just jump and go and do it. And in the meantime, I was applying to the typical job in consulting and in Paris and like very formal places. And I'm like, yeah, let's try. If there is something, why not? We'll see. So it worked out, and I'm like, okay, I know that I have to go. I felt it, like a calling. So I went, and this is how I discovered what was happening. I could see from Silicon Valley, in the heart of the startup ecosystem and around the world, I could see what was happening, the tech revolution, and how technology was changing the way we live, and it was also transforming the new opportunities. And I could see a lot of countries that I didn't think of at that time, like Pakistan, Lithuania. It was back in 2012. They were already investing heavily in technology and in their startup ecosystem, because they understood it was the next economy and the way to give a future to the youth. So I thought, what are we doing in Morocco, in my home country, in Africa, in the MENA region? And at that time, it was right after the Arab Spring. So things were already starting to boom, and there was already a dynamic around technology as a way to do a revolution and to change things. So this is how I got this calling again to really do something for Morocco and accelerate that in Africa. And I decided to come back home and participate in kickstarting the startup scene in my country. And this is in this making that I had the opportunity. I was selected actually by the US State Department and Goldman Sachs to be in this Harvard leadership program. And then I had the opportunity to do also an executive program in venture capital called VC Unlocked with 500 startups and at Stanford University. So this is, you connect the dots while you look back and also while you're doing things. So yeah, I was not planning to go at Harvard or Stanford, and actually just an executive program again. But still, it was an amazing experience and so, mind blowing. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's an amazing background. I think there's a lot of different questions that I have from all this, for all your life experiences that you just mentioned. So maybe let's start from the beginning. You grew up in Casablanca, right? In Morocco.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you always know that you were going to travel the world like you did and discover, or not really?
To be honest, not really. At the beginning, I was not thinking of that. I was just like thinking, well, I need to find a way, my path. And I was very interested in science because for me, it was a way to understand the world. I was very curious. I loved physics and mathematics and science. And then I did, okay, I'm like, at 18, how do you want to know what you want to do in life? It's too early. It's very hard.
Right.
I think people shouldn't be choosing at 18 because they're just discovering life. So I choose the path that opens up the maximum opportunities and doesn't close doors. So, and my father was always like, get your bachelor and your master's, and then you can think of anything you want to do, but first get them.
Yeah.
Okay. But in a good way, not in a. So I thought the best way to keep doors open and to find what I really wanted to do is to do engineering, because I loved science, I loved mathematics and physics. So I'm like, okay, let's continue on this path and see. And then with being an engineer, you can do anything you want. You can even switch to business later on. So this is what I did. And then after that, I knew that it was great to understand things and to see how it works. But to be honest, I didn't felt I wanted to be on the tech side, because I was in computer science. So I choose, in France, the program, you had 2 years of common studies in engineering, and then you have to choose a specialty. So I did computer science, not because I was good at coding, not at all. I never coded before, so I had to learn. And I was with people who did that since they were 6 or 8 years old. So I can tell you it's not easy. And then, but I was very good at mathematics, and it's logics, algorithmics, and I knew that at that time that this is the future. So I'm like, anyway, whatever you do, we're gonna end up doing something that is related to tech and to computer science. So it's better to go for it all the way fully, and then understand how it works, and then you can do whatever. So yeah, so I think it was a good choice, but a very challenging one.
Yeah. And like when you did this decision to study abroad, like in your circle in Morocco, was it something that it was very usual, or were you like standing out from the crowd?
Yeah, no. Like studying abroad in Morocco is pretty common for like people who have access to education and can go abroad. So I was lucky to be able to do that. Then, and France is also very well like the number one destination for Moroccans because we speak French. And my first choice was not France at that time; it was Canada. And I was accepted at not a university there that is like McGill University in engineering, but for me it was too far away. I didn't know the system. It was something. And then I'm the elder in my family, so I'm like, okay, let's go to France start, and then I can go further later on. So this is what I did.
Mm-hmm.
So I was from day one, I knew that I would study in France for the start, and then I would go somewhere else to discover. So, and then at the end of my studies, I really wanted to see something else, and also I felt the need to have a background in business to be able to have this double education.
You just mentioned that you are the older in your family. Does that mean that you have younger brother and or sisters?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Do you see yourself like a role model to them? Do you feel that they look up to you?
I won't say role model, but I hope, I've inspired them somehow. And I always I was always the one that opens doors and goes to the path first. And then I give them advice on what to do and not to do. So I think that helped. And actually, it's funny because my sister is now an entrepreneur as well. And she was not at all in this path before.
Okay.
And then my brother is an engineer, in compared to, not a mechanical engineer. Yeah, I think somehow there are some learnings and then some maybe inspirations, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. And in your case, talking about inspiration, do you have anybody that has inspired you?
Well, so I'd say, but at a very high level, I think one of the figures, the heroes that I really admire is Nelson Mandela. I think his life and his path and his resilience and values and the way he fights for something that he believes in is something that is very inspiring, and especially with the way he's done it with peace and the way that he was able to forgive and just go forward. I think he is a great inspiration to the world. And one of the quotes that I love about him is, it always seems impossible until it's done. So it's something that is really driving me, and I share this thing.
Mm-hmm. And how do you use this inspiration, or even like this quote on it seems impossible until it's done, to Outliers Ventures? What is your vision, or what would you love to achieve with it?
So we started out the fund after 4 years working on the ground with entrepreneurs in Morocco and then across the region in Africa. After this, my journey, my experience in San Francisco, what I could see what was happening around the world, as I was mentioning before. And I wanted to bring that to my home country because I was frustrated at that time that, the only opportunities available for youth were to go and work for a big company where you are one among many and you don't really contribute. You're executing, it's good, but there is no other path. And those companies sometimes could be very old, with a lot of politics. So I could see my friends coming back to Morocco, or those who graduated in Morocco and then joining the corporate world, being very frustrated because they couldn't really release their potential. And I thought it's such a pity, because I know they have talent and they can do something. They have the power and the eager and drive to go and change things and then find solutions for existing problems. And this is why I really wanted to see that happen. And I could see, this mindset in San Francisco, that everything is possible. People are not afraid. They just go and do it. And they can do it, and it becomes a reality, and they change the way people live. So I'm like, well, that's amazing. And if it doesn't exist in Morocco, it's just because people don't know it's possible. They haven't seen any success stories, any examples of these things in their home, in their own continent or country. So I'm like, if it doesn't exist, well, we have to change that. We have to create it. So this is how I decided to come back and build a startup ecosystem to enable that. So Outliers as a fund came out after the first step. I would call it like that. It's this organization called Startup Your Life that was an ecosystem builder, and connecting entrepreneurs to each other, connecting entrepreneurs to mentor, to investors from the region and around the world. And this is how we had 500 startups come. And this is how I met also Michael Siebel from Y Combinator, who is today the CEO. and who became our first investors in Outliers. And this is how 500 startups joined after, as well as an investor, as an LP in the fund, because they could see the work done and the vision, and this is what drive, and this is what made the fund happen. And it's not only for Morocco; it's really a fund that is Africa focused, because we believe talent are everywhere, and that we do exactly, we apply to ourselves the same advice that we give to entrepreneurs. Think market first. Morocco is a too small market to build out a VC fund, but Africa is a great market and have great opportunities. So this is why the fund from day one was sized on where we have the most chances to find the best entrepreneurs, those who can be outliers, those who can be success stories, and then prove to the world, to our LPs and to the world, that we can build out successful businesses using technology out of Africa.
Do you have a favorite story of one of the entrepreneurs from your portfolio that you could definitely say, okay, this is why I am actually doing Outliers Ventures?
Yeah, definitely. So as I said, we invest in businesses that are solving fundamental problems in the real life, real economy, real industries, and that are leveraging technology to change the business model to do it better. And close those infrastructure gaps that we can find in Africa and in traditional economies. So, for example, we have two companies doing kind of the same business model. One is in Egypt, the other one is in Kenya, and has scaled to East Africa. So what they are doing is just amazing, because they are going into a big segment of the economy, which is retail. So, FMCG retail, from grocery goods that are sold in supermarkets, but also in Africa, especially 80% of the volume sold is done via those small informal shops across the countries. And then, so 80% of it is done via those informal sector, but the FMCG like Unilever, Procter & Gamble, all of them, they have no visibility on their value chain. And the value chain is very fragmented, because they sell to a wholesaler that sells to another one and to a distributor until it gets to the small shop owners that they don't have access. Sometimes they go out of stock, and they have to go back to the wholesaler and refill their stock, and in a very not scalable way, I'll say. So what they do actually is that they take control of this value chain, and actually they enable those small shop owners to order via a mobile app or via SMS, and they aggregate orders and they buy in bulk from FMCG companies, and they deliver directly to the small shop owners for free after 24 hours. So they have actually redesigned the whole value chain, and they're cutting the middlemen and making it more efficient, and enabling small shop owners to never go out of stock. They can just order and get delivered the next day, and also to increase their volume sold. And now they're introducing, credits, so that they can, the small shop owners can buy more and sell more, and they are doing many other things. So this company, both of them has grown, like they grew very, very quickly. And they're serving thousands of small shop owners, and they've raised follow-on round with the great valuations. And so one of them just closed Series A in Kenya with led by a US VC fund, and the other one just closed their seed round, but a big seed round led by a Dubai VC fund.
Okay, great to hear. And I think it's the case in many emerging markets where, as Seedstars, we're present in the case of the economy being mainly driven by these small shop owners. Like, for example, I'm originally from Peru, and 90% of the economy on average is these SMEs and very micro informal producers. So it's great to see that we are not alone, and potentially these solutions can also be scaled to other regions.
And those that exist in India, there is a big success story doing the same model. And it has been proved that it works, because they are building the infrastructure for retail in the informal sector. and we're using technology to digitize some of the processes.
So beyond the business model per se, that I have no doubt that it's interesting, as well as the market potential and the impact that it has, what, let's say, traits do you see in entrepreneurs when you as a VC fund want to invest?
For the founders, you mean, correct?
Yeah.
Sure. So we'd like to see that they have some kind of background and experience that shows that they understand the industry that they're in, that they can execute. This is very important. And that they have a team that have complementary skills. And of course that they have a vision, they understand what they're doing, and they've been able to show some traction. So this is very important. And the founders, at that stage, we invest in the founders first. So it's very important to believe in their ability to make things happen, to execute, that they have resilience, and they're driven by something big, like a big vision in the long term.
So I know you are a managing partner, but also co-founder of Outliers Ventures. Do you and your partner have the same view on this, or is it more like a complementary, or sometimes you don't agree? How is it to be like co-leading Outliers?
Yeah, well, of course, it's great to have partners, because to do things alone, it's not easy. It's almost impossible. You need to have people that you can share the path with, and that you can bounce ideas. You can have advice. You can compare what you're thinking and be challenged and challenge the other. So it's very important, and that's why. So we kind of had complementary. We're aligned on the values. Values are key. This is the backbone of what you're doing. So our number one rule is to work with people that share the same values than us. And then secondly, so in terms of, it could be, when I say people, it could be the GPs, the team, but also the LPs, the advisors, the entrepreneurs. So we need to have we like to feel the harmony and make sure that we work with good people. So this is one. Secondly, of course, we have complementary skills. So my partner his background is in private equity. So he has experience building funds, raising money, investing for bigger amounts, but that is very helpful for what we're doing. And I come from a tech background with more on-the-ground startup experience. So this is very helpful, and it's needed in any team.
Kenza, so you just mentioned something very interesting regarding values and how you align it with your partners, but also with your stakeholders. What are those values that drive Outliers Ventures?
So first is passion. You have to be passionate about what you're doing. We are passionate about what we do, because if we didn't have this passion, it's so hard that you won't go till the end if you're not really passionate about what you're doing. And you know why you're doing what you're doing, and you know the higher purpose. So I would say passion, transparency. So doing things in a very transparent way with our LPs, with our entrepreneurs, with our internally in the company. So with our team, we are very much, we like to share information. We're very open and inclusive. And I think this is very important. And then resilience. So when you're in entrepreneurship, by definition, you will get into hard times. And in these moments, then you have to be very resilient. You have to be committed. So we like people who have this long-term vision and long-term plans, and are there for the long term and can overcome the challenges. So a lot of resilience, and especially in those ecosystems, I can tell you, is much needed. And then whatever you do, it has to be to bring value to and do good. So we like to work with good people, and we like to do good deals, and we like to bring mutual benefits. So I think those are the main values that drives us as a team and drive our investments as well.
Great to hear. And were you actively involved in the fundraising for Outliers?
Well, so it's a challenge. So I think, yeah, well, for everyone, raising a fund, and especially in a new market as Africa, where opportunities are starting to be more obvious, but are not that exit potential is not obvious yet for everyone, and that there is not yet those big success stories that can just make money flow into the continent. For sure it's harder, but the good thing is that the VC investment have been growing very fast in the past few years. Now in 2019 they reached VC funding in Africa reached $2 billion, which is 75% more than the year before. It was about a billion and $1.2 billion in 2018, but it's more of that. The most important is that it's 48 times more what it was 6 years ago. So it means that the growth is just amazing, incredible, and there are more and more great deals coming up in Africa, and also big international investors that are getting into bigger rounds in Africa. For example, Goldman Sachs, Tencent, and other big ones are investing themselves in African tech companies. So this is a great opportunity. This is very exciting, and in the meantime, this is the good time for us to be in this ecosystem and to be building the fund.
Mm-hmm. Can you share with the audience some challenges that you've had beyond the typical ones? Maybe you as leading the fundraising, or you trying to get investors from perhaps people or organizations that did not believe in the potential that Africa has.
Yeah, well, I have many stories. So the good thing is that we were lucky to have people like Michael Siever from YC, 500 startups, and some other big names join the fund from day one. So it really helped raise the first round. And then we started investing right away to be able to prove that there is great potential, and that we are able to get a great deal that are raising very good follow-on rounds at a higher valuation. So we had some amazing valuation multiples just in a year and a half, up to 7x.
Okay.
So this is good, and this is helpful for the investor that are less, a bit more reluctant. They don't know Africa yet, so we give them some insights and some time to really see what's happening. And of course, now it's even more interesting. Well, with the crisis, we don't know what's gonna happen, but for sure, some sectors will get hit, but others will be even more hot, because, like for example, health tech will be. I think it's something that is much needed, and this is an infrastructure that we need to build worldwide, and to give people access to health services even from their homes. So this crisis have shown that. Also fintech, some of the fintechs are digitizing cash is also very, I think, have proven the necessity right now in this time. And also I think companies and corporations at a large scale would understand now even more than ever that they need to be more digital. They need to digitize their processes so that they can be able to have people working remotely and keeping their activity going, whatever happens. So so I think this is a great opportunity as well, that shows, of course, that good and bad. But if we focus on the good things, I think this is that has straightened that need to go more digital.
So I agree with the potential of it. I would just like to know what type of challenges. Like let's say not so good part of your story.
There are many. So when you're a pioneer in an ecosystem, you are faced with the first obstacles that you have to overcome, and then just raise so that it could be fixed for the next one. So I'm thinking first in terms of regulation and everything that is having to do with legal. So we face many challenges in this field. we at the beginning, our investors were US American first. So naturally, they wanted us to build a fund, to incorporate the fund in the US. But we said, hey, well, it's an Africa fund. We're gonna be investing in Africa anyway, so your money would get there at some point. So let us. We are Moroccans. We are Africans. We want our funds to be in Africa. So let us try to find the best way to do it, and then see what happens. So we spent almost a year, if not more, trying to structure the fund in the best regulation jurisdiction or regulatory framework in Morocco, because we have some kind of international regulatory place that enables that, on paper would enable that. And we spent like a year trying to get that done, and to get the agreements to be able to do that, because it's very heavily regulated and you need to do many steps in order to get there. But we, after a long time of trying and waiting for an answer, we just realized that unfortunately places, countries, or like continents like Africa are not ready yet in terms of regulation to be able to have the right structuration for funds that need to invest in multi-countries, in multi-currencies, and to have everything standardized, and to be able to go fast, because VC, and especially seed, is going very fast, and you need to be able to deploy, and you need to be able to follow on and get to get into the best deals. So after a long time of continuous trial and battles and everything, we just had to be to look at the reality and say, it's not actually, it doesn't work. We need to find another way to find the best place to incorporate the fund. So we realized that we had to do it in an international ecosystem, or like a regulatory place, and that the best thing that we had at that time was to set it up in the US, in Delaware, very standard. And then we also realized that all, like 80% or 90% of African companies that raise funding have local or international VC funds that ask them to reincorporate and to open up holding company outside, just to optimize on taxes. But not only that, it's because when you invest, there are some standards in terms of terms and the way you structure the deal. So when you are doing VC and you have investors coming from different, geographies or jurisdiction, or countries, they have different law system, so they need to be familiar with the terms and to agree on the terms. Exactly. So the best is to be in jurisdictions that are very much that are used a lot, and for example Delaware or Amsterdam or others. Sure. So this is how we decided to go back to do it in Delaware. And we had to find the right law firm the right US law firm that could help us do that at acceptable costs, because don't forget that we were raising a fund from scratch and that we needed to optimize on costs. So we were very lucky, and especially with people around us, the advisors and people involved were able to help us and connect us to the right people, to the right law firms in the US, who saw this as an opportunity to get access to Africa, and then helped us set up the fund. So it was a really long journey where we had to be very, very resilient, because at the same time, investors were waiting to put out their check, and entrepreneurs were waiting for the deals to be done, and we were in between. And so we had to warehouse deals via our investors so that we could not lose some opportunities. And so this is the way you have to do as an entrepreneur, even when you are building a fund.
Like hack the system somehow, so you don't lose the value and your vision. Okay. Exactly. So you mentioned that after this international career that you had, you decided that you wanted to go to Morocco. You wanted to influence the ecosystem, bring the innovation, and also like expand it beyond the country. And now with Outliers, you're doing it in Africa. And it seems quite flawless, and it seems like quite smooth, the journey. But can you maybe share was there any breaking point, or was there any like moment that you said, okay, maybe this is not the right path, maybe I should just go back to something else?
Yeah, for sure, of course. Before starting that, which is a big, jump. Before starting that, it took me maybe a year and a half or two to really decide that I was ready to raise a fund, that I want to go in there and do it. And before deciding, so the first time I thought of building a fund was not something that I could imagine at that time. It's after my meeting with Michael Sibo from YC, who really changed the way I was going to look at the future path and I wanted to accomplish. So
why, may I ask?
Sure. So it's funny. He was visiting Morocco, and he was asked to meet ecosystem leaders in each of those countries. So we got introduced and we met and we spent, I remember, 4 hours speaking, and we were explaining, what was happening in the startup ecosystem, the funding options, the VCs that were there were actually just one that was a state-owned, half public, half private VC fund, and a lot of challenges in the ecosystem at that time because it was really early at that time. And what we were trying to do, the sort of a community that we were building, and the vision that, we're starting with the first layer first, which is the startup community, and then building an accelerator or an incubator in 2 years later, and then in 5 to 10 years building a fund. And then Michael just said, hey, why are you waiting 10 years to do what matters the most, which is a VC fund that would have the most impact? Because people need capital, and they need capital, but smart capital. And this is what you should be doing now. Like, yes, but we don't have experience in investing in companies, in startups before. I don't have credibility. I don't have investors who would want to follow and invest in tech in Africa, in Morocco. 2000 and I don't know, 14, 15 maybe. And then he said, yeah, well, think as an entrepreneur, start small. You can do it. You just go and find this amount of money and start investing. You already have all deal flow. You already are connected into the startup ecosystem, and this is how you can start. So, but then after that, it took me a long time to really decide that I can do it, and that this is like what I should be doing, and that I'm able to do it. So it took me time, and it took me also to meet the right people around me, to have the right support, to have the right team, and to feel that all the resources are available around, even if you don't have the resources today, thinking that they are somewhere around you, and there's just one connection maybe, or two connections, is very reassuring, and also gives you the drive to go and do it. So once you get that, and then you have the right people that can help also in terms of support, and give you the confidence that you can do it. I think this is the key. So it took me a long time, and it took me to meet mentors. And I was, at the beginning, I was even ashamed to say, hey, I have, my first. So Michael decided to be a first investor in the fund 6 months after the first meeting. And he said, okay, now what are you waiting for? What do you need? I'm like, yeah, I need more credibility. I need my first investors. So he's like, okay, so I'm going to be your first investor and your advisor. So now go and do it. So after that, I was a bit on the fence, and I had to find a way to make it happen. So that's how I met my team, my mentors, who became after that GPs in the fund and advisors of the fund. So this is how you can get people together, attract them around the same vision, and then when you believe and you share the same long-term goal of seeing Africa thriving, and technology is a way to do it. This is how you can build something that has more than just a short-term purpose.
Maybe like one of the main challenges was for you to have this confidence and to actually go do it. And it was only when you decided to do it and really get hands-on that you started to see the results. What was the doubt behind? Like, what was the the questioning in your head? Is it
Yeah.
like the fear of failure?
Yeah,
What was
well,
it?
first, it's to ask yourself, how do I build a fund? How does it work? I had no idea. I come from a computer science background. I had a master in business, so I know fundamental of finance and everything. But I had no idea. I worked in private equity, but building a fund and going through the whole structuration and legal part and everything is another beast. It's something completely different. And now after doing it yourself, you really get to understand and know how it works. So it's like getting an MBA in 2 years by yourself on the ground. So, but of course, with the help of those great people. So my co-founder came in first, and then we went to a lawyer who is also an entrepreneur. She worked for a big firm in Paris for 7 years, and then came back to Morocco, started her own advisory firm, and is very passionate about helping people, or like about Africa and building things that are new and completely disruptive. So she felt in love with what we were doing, and we felt in love with her. And she's just amazing and helped us through all the legal structuration in the beginning. And then we were very complimentary, and she brought something as a really added value to the fund, and she became one of the GPs. Her firm became a minority strategic GP in the fund, because
Okay.
it's a way to build to bring complementary skills and straighten the fund structure. So this is how you get things going, and this is how you can bring together the right people around the entity, the company, the firm, to make it work.
So I get that in this there has been a lot of personal connections that were very relevant, if not fundamental, for Outliers to be created and then have the evolution and the traction that it has now. But also I see your personal life, and you've been everywhere, like from Singapore to the US, and then finally you went back to Morocco. Was it difficult to go back to a country which perhaps you were so disconnected for so many years?
Yeah. Yes and no. So when I came back home, I came with the vision, with the really a mission in mind. I knew that I want to do that, and nothing else. When I first came back, I took a job because I was still trying to figure it out, how to do it. I knew the vision, but I didn't know the steps to get into it. So I started with a job in tech and on Africa. So, and then after that, so it gave me some time to mature and see. And I started out in the market, like on the ground, with building the startup ecosystem, with the startup community. And this is at that time that it became more clear. So I think if I came back with no project in mind, with no real ambition and something that was burning inside, I think it would have been much more difficult, for sure. But there are good and bad in anything, and I think my choice of coming back home is first to contribute to my country, because I felt lucky to have access to education, to travel the world, to see what was happening. And I thought, if we don't do it, who will do it? And then secondly, it's because family is here. So family is something key, is at the center of my life, and family, like any case. But I think it's like the backbone of anyone's. Cut. I want to say that again.
Oh, it was good. It was good.
Well, I don't know how to express in English, but so the second thing is family, because family is key for me, and I knew that anyway I would come back to Morocco to be close to my parents, my brothers and sisters, and family in general.
Would you do anything differently if you had a chance to go back in time?
I don't know, to be honest, because you can't really plan. What I know is that you can't plan. Whatever you think you will do, or whatever you think how it will go, it will never go that way. It will never go exactly like that. But as long as you are in the right path, this is what matters at the end of the day. So, and I think for me, it's not about getting there, because getting there is the final outcome, but it's about the path that you go through to get there. I think if you just, if I had someone who gave me a lot of money to start a fund, it won't feel the same. So I'm glad to have gone through all the challenges to really understand and to really, feel that you can do it and learn on the way how.
Yeah, absolutely. It's here when I can really feel finally the quote of it's not the destination, it's the journey. Actually makes
Exactly.
complete sense for what you say. Okay, maybe let's touch base now on let's say the role model that you play to many people in the venture capital world, the startup world. And I guess you get this question a lot, but how was it to be a woman from the Middle East region, taking the lead in so many projects and really like having this ambition and vision in mind, coming back to your country and building first the startup community with the country that you were somehow already haven't been in so many years, and then the ventures. How did that role play within your journey?
Indeed, that's something that comes back a lot because it's also a reality. So there are goods and bads of being a woman in this tech ecosystem in the VC space. I was a bit used to that because from my young age and my engineering studies, I've always been part of the few women with men. So in my engineering computer science department, we were 4 women out of 45 total students. So yeah, I'm kind of used to that. I don't function as if I am different. I think we grew up in a world where we had the same access to education and school, and we were equal basis at the beginning, and we had the same studies, we had the same grades, we have the same, we had the same. So I don't function as there is something different, but of course there are strengths and weaknesses in both for both. I think being a pioneer in the VC space, part of the pioneers in the VC space in Africa, and being a woman is making it even more pioneering. So I think I've always embraced the fact to be a pioneer in things. So I'm not. It doesn't feel weird to me, and also it gives some way of differentiation. So when you are part of the few women in the room, I can tell you that you're getting more noticed. Sometimes it could be also not harming, but adds more challenge because you have to prove that beyond the image that you give, there is something more interesting, and there is something beyond just the appearance. So this is always something that you need to break, especially that that when you look young, it doesn't help. I think looking young is worse than more difficult than than being a female. So I'll say there are goods and bads. And it's great I'm happy to inspire more women, more young women to follow the path of doing what they believe in, because as long as you believe what you're doing, you can achieve it. If you don't believe, no one will believe it for you. So I think this is the key.
Think about somebody that wants to start either a startup or perhaps start the fundraising process for a fund, and it's a woman, and it's having so many doubts about how to go about it, how to deal with it, maybe doesn't have it as clear as you actually did. What would be your recommendations or your advice?
Exactly what I was saying. Really do something that is burning you very deeply inside, and that you have the energy, the drive to fight for a long time, because it's all about resilience and having the drive, having the vision of knowing why you're doing what you're doing. It could be a fund, it could be a company, but it has to have something deeper and a drive that will make it happen. Secondly, I would say, in any case, solve a problem. Make sure that you're solving a real problem, because otherwise If you're just if you're doing something that is nice to have, then people are not willing to pay for, there is no market fit for, well, it's not gonna it's gonna be worthless. And same if you're building a fund, but you're being the 1,000 seed fund in the US or in a very crowded market, and you're not bringing any differentiation and any additional value, it won't work. So do something that you are really solving a problem and being different. And then I would say surround yourself with the right people. I think in anything you're doing in life, it gets hard. You have what it takes inside to make it happen, but you need to be around great people that would cheer you up, that would help you grow, that would help you get and learn, and that will bring complementarity to you, because you cannot do and know and be best at everything. So this is very important on the technical side, but also on the psychological, mental strength.
Yeah.
And then I would say, last but not least, maybe really, if you decide to do something, go fully, go and do it, and just know that it's not gonna be easy, but that the results, if you can imagine yourself in 5-10 years at the place that you want to be, and this is a vision that excites you, then you know that's the right decision to do.
Wow, it's been truly inspiring talking to you, Kenza. So much for your time and for all the knowledge you have shared with us. Shukran.
Thank you.
Thanks you so much
for your time, and keep in touch.
Thank you for listening to our hero's journey, and subscribe now for more stories on Seedstars podcast.